Hey, open a new tab and go to youtube.com. What do you see? Well, you probably see the homepage of youtube.com, naturally. But what actually happens when you press the enter key? Today we'll be talking about how websites work and what happens in the back end when you go to a website. Now, for the sake of time, I'll keep this brief, but what actually happens when you type in youtube.com in your URL, right, in your address bar? It's magic. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you when you type in youtube.com in your address bar, click enter, the first thing that your computer is going to do is reach out to the DNS server. And what does DNS server mean or do? What is that? DNS stands for Domain Name System. The DNS server is going to translate the URL, youtube.com, right, into an IP address. And the IP address is the only way that the computers communicate to each other on a network. Because computers can't communicate by host names, which is what the URL common name that is human readable is called. And so once the DNS server translates the host name into an IP address, it's going to reach out to that IP address asking to basically permission to connect to the web server. But what exactly is youtube.com? What is a web server, right? Well, a server is literally just a computer. Here. Like this one. A server is literally any computer that is running a server, right? Kind of makes sense. And normally they have very low downtimes and high availability so people can access that service, like a web service, website, or file service, or anything like that, right? In this specific instance, with very large companies like YouTube, Amazon, Google, or any very large website that needs super high availability, always make sure that users get through to the website, they're going to ensure that users get through to the website by implementing load balancing techniques. These load balancing techniques are going to evenly distribute the load, the traffic, between all of the available servers. So if you have laptop A and B here, right, and then like 3 different users that want to connect, or 100, whatever the amount is, the load balancer, it's all going to come in through the load balancer, and the load balancer will evenly distribute traffic to those servers, ensuring that no one server is overloaded. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual HTTP request, right? Whenever YouTube reaches out, damn, my dishwasher is loud. Whenever you connect to any kind of server, your computer is going to reach out to that DNS server, and then it's going to go back to your computer, and then your computer is going to make a request, an HTTP request, to that web server, basically asking whether it can connect or not, right? In this instance, it's going to be a HTTP GET request, because it's trying to retrieve information from YouTube. Now on YouTube's end, it receives this HTTP GET request and sends a response code of 200 indicating that it was successful, and we as YouTube are going to start sending the web page back as a response, the full web page for youtube.com. And after your computer receives the code back from youtube.com, it is going to interpret that code and render it as a visual image that you can see on your screen. Now, the reason I point this out explicitly is because sometimes there are errors in the way that it renders things on different browsers. And that's why you might have incompatibilities with certain websites, because certain functionality is disabled or not available on your specific browser. For example, if you're using Internet Explorer, don't, but it has incompatibility issues with a lot of modern websites, and so you wouldn't be able to browse them anyways. Now, on almost every website you visit, there's going to be a thing called cookies that stores data and information about you as a person, or just your specific session on the website. And when I say session, I mean anything from your user account to your specific instance that you're running of that website. let me elaborate a little bit on this. So what I mean by this is a cookie can, or multiple cookies, which is just data that is stored within the browser, multiple cookies can make up your online identity, as in your account for a specific website. So within YouTube, you have multiple cookies that would make up your individual person's account. And if you were to delete those cookies in your instance, in your specific YouTube instance that you've received, you would become signed out of the account because YouTube.com, the server, does not know who you are anymore. It's important to note here that cookies are normally time-based and history-based. So if you were to leave a page open for, I don't know, let's say a day or two straight, and then try to access that information again and click on a link or something, it may have signed you out of the account because those cookies are no longer valid anymore. So whenever YouTube.com receives your cookies again, YouTube actually rejects those cookies entirely, saying that they're invalid because of whatever reason, history, or your history was cleared, or your time value expired, etc. However, if you were to leave YouTube.com and go to some other website, come back to YouTube.com within that time frame of, let's just say it's an expiration date of a day, right? If you leave YouTube.com to go to Google.com, go back to YouTube.com, it's more than likely that your cookies are going to save, well, especially with one of the larger websites like YouTube.com or Amazon, etc. It's very likely that your cookies are going to save for that time frame that you were gone, and then whenever you come back, they're going to be validated again. They're going to still be valid. It's going to be the same cookies as before. Now, so long as your cookie information stays the same, your user account and your active session on the web page is going to remain the same. As soon as you change those cookies to anything else, intentionally or unintentionally, it's going to be reflected on the web page itself. This is exactly how your recommendations would work on YouTube.com, so there might be ways that you could alter the cookies to reflect different recommendations and things like that, because that's kind of the only way that if you were signed out or even signed in, that's kind of the only way that YouTube.com knows you as a user, is through the exchange of information through HTTP packets or cookies. Furthermore, if someone hacks your computer and manages to steal those valid cookies and take them and then try to go apply them on their computer, it's more than likely not going to work with these larger websites. But know that in a traditional sense, if there's no protections against it, anyone can just take a cookie and use it somewhere else and then send it to the server, and as long as the server only validates the cookie based on the cookie value and not anything else, they could effectively become you and sign into your account. So to wrap this all up, when you go to a website, your computer first sends the packet to the DNS server, which translates it into an IP address. The IP address is then sent back to your computer, and your computer sends a HTTP GET packet, or it's likely a HTTP GET packet, but it could be other forms of it, like post, put, delete. It sends a HTTP GET packet to the actual server, which is youtube.com in this instance, right? Then the web server, youtube.com, sends a request back to your computer, basically stating, okay, I've received your request. That page that you requested, which is likely the home page, is valid and you have access to it, all those other things. Response code 200, okay? And then youtube.com is going to start sending the web page back. Your browser renders that code that it receives, okay? And then you start interacting with the web page. You start clicking on videos, you start maybe adding videos to your watch list, maybe sign into your account. And as you're doing all of that, it's altering cookies, which are just little tidbits of information that are stored on your local session, your local version of the browser. And then those cookies are sent back to youtube.com. So youtube.com knows what to update and how to update it, right? So you're sending those cookies back to youtube.com, and then youtube.com goes, okay, they signed in, okay? They signed in, they sent valid like cookies and everything, and now we're gonna send them all of their preferences, their recommended videos, watch later list, channel, whatever else. It's gonna send back to your local version of the browser, and then it's reflected all again so you can actually see what's going on. Alright, lastly, if you thought this video was educational, informative, whatever, give it a like, hit that subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's right here. Stay tuned for more educational, fundamental, or maybe advanced, who knows, cybersecurity IT videos. Thanks, bye.